Here's how I earned millions of dollars over the course of my career and how you can do the exact same thing. When I started off, even before going off to college, I had a summer job and I worked a lot of long hours, hard days, late nights at that job. And I was able to eke out some money over time. When I went off to college, because of all those hours, I had earned about $30,000. Then in college, I not only took a full course load, but I took a lot of variety of jobs. For example, I was a virtual reality researcher before virtual reality was really a thing. I did 3D modeling for a Spanish educational video game. I worked for an international film festival. I actually worked for a toy company called Cuba Maze, where you could drop a marble down this maze-like toy. And I also worked for an organic fruit company. But all of these side jobs and side hustles during college I was able to earn some more income off of that. So that by about my second or third year in college, I had saved up about $50,000. This is where I decided to take it to the next level. So in 2007, I know, great timing, I decided to get into real estate. I bought my very first house. And I can remember the dollar amount to this day. It was $189,900. It took me about $40,000 of my savings to pay down the initial deposit on the house, and I had a bank loan for the rest. I then rented that house out, which was a great experience, although it's a lot harder than it looks because you've got to find that resident, you've got to turn over that unit. I had days, frankly, that the resident would move out and they would leave it in terrible condition. Things would be scratched off of the wall. I needed to do like junk and gross, like sticky stuff all over the floor. I had to repolish everything. It was awful. But that's what it took during that time to kind of make that income from that house. Now I had purchased in 2007, right before the Great Recession, the housing collapse. So my investment actually went down. I lost money, which is hard to look at that time. I had also made another investment into a little company called Google. I invested actually at their IPO, and my money in that investment 10x'd. It grew by 1,000%. That sounds fantastic until you realize I only invested $500. So today it's worth $5,000. That's a nice little side income, but I was definitely kicking myself having put $40,000 into the house, losing a lot of it versus the $500 that I had grown quite a bit. So an important lesson there that it doesn't only matter that you want to succeed in your investment, it's how much you put in it that really matters. Anyway, I graduated from college and then I took a job at a construction company, but also during that time, I did a lot of side hustles. I went to garage sales. This was right at the time that cell phones were becoming quite popular, with internet. And I would use my cell phone with internet, which was crazy advanced. And I would search on my little cell phone the products that I saw at the garage sale. And if I could find those products selling for more on eBay or Amazon, I would buy them at the garage sale and resell them on eBay and Amazon. This made me some good side money. In fact, I can remember Guitar Hero was one of my favorite because I could buy it typically at a garage sale or on Craigslist for $50, and I would sell it on Amazon for $300 or $400. I would be watching the Craigslist listings, and anytime another Guitar Hero came up, I would drive halfway across the city to pick it up to make my couple $100 for that day. So that worked well, was earning some more income. I did some online income, but another part of it is I lived incredibly inexpensively. I wouldn't spend money on anything. I found super cheap rent. So only paying $500 a month living with some roommates. I remember At work, I'd have my boots, but they were so worn down that they were flapping in the breeze. I had to duct tape them back up to make them work. My clothes had holes in them. It was embarrassing, but again, I was trying to save every penny I could to pay off the loan I had on my house at the time and earn up some income. One of the things I learned is that by living so cheaply, uh, it, your life becomes pretty low stress. Because if I didn't make an income, it didn't really matter because my income, my costs were so low. So, kind of valuable point there. Keep your costs low, and it really doesn't matter how much you make, you actually can live a pretty satisfying life. But I wanted to do more. And so at this point, with all of these jobs and all this hard work, I'd earned enough money to start building my own little 8 unit townhome complex. The cost was about $1 million. Now I got a bank loan on it for 800,000, so I had to bring about $200,000 to the table. But for a few years out of college, lots of hard work, I was able to save that couple $100,000. Got a few people together to build the building, and it was so hard. I never built anything quite like that, at least on my own. And I can remember one day when we were at the beginning of the project, one of my employees came to me and he was almost shouting in my face. He said, "Mike, this is too hard. This is too stressful. There's no way we can do this. You should fire me and give up." Right? And that's so hard. But we made it through. We worked hard through that project. It took 8, 9 months to finish this little 8 unit building, which now I look back at that and I think that was so easy, but it was really hard for me at that time. Now it's crazy as we finished that project for that $1 million cost, but the value of that building when we were done or a few years later came out to be about $2.2 million. And so this is the first point that I'm teetering on being a millionaire. I didn't have $1 million of cash in my bank account, but I had $1 million of equity in a building that we had done. Now, also during this time, I was toying with some other side activities. And one crazy thing that I'd heard about, not many people knew about it, was this thing called cryptocurrency. Bitcoin had been launched, and there's this other cryptocurrency called Litecoin that was brand new. And I thought, why not? It'd be kind of fun, get some crypto miners to actually mine some Bitcoin. So I bought a bunch of miners and went into my mom's basement. I set up all these miners on racks and I learned some electrical. I figured out how to tie right into my parents' electrical panel so that I could power those miners with directly from the source electricity in the home. And I paid my mom the electricity costs of those miners. And those miners ended up mining me Bitcoin that became worth millions of dollars. This was sort of my first jackpot that I ever really hit and gave me kind of great wealth, certainly much more income than I'd ever seen up until that point. I also got involved in Ethereum literally the moment it started. I bought a computer, set up some hardware on that computer to mine Ethereum, and I made hundreds of thousands of dollars on this, like, frankly, just quick side activity that I was doing with Ethereum. So this started giving me some access to millions of dollars at that point. And that's where I started getting into more serious real estate. The next big project that I did was a project called Emberwood. It was a 112 unit apartment building. And we built it over 3 years. Each phase was about 36, 40 units. And that was one of the hardest points of my life. I didn't realize how hard it really would be to build that building. In fact, when I got out there, I had some challenges getting through the city council. I didn't realize the importance of building relationships with people And so I struggled with that, but eventually eked by, was able to get approval for the building. When I was on site, the city actually shut us down twice. And the reason they shut us down, frankly, is because I was some pipsqueak kid. I didn't really know what I was doing. They were certainly concerned whether or not I could pull this off. And in many ways, I couldn't. We were failing at certain items. We didn't. There were some blocks that weren't laid properly. The grout wasn't in place, and they had serious concern if we could do this at the level we needed to. And I really started to doubt myself as well. Could I do it? Could I actually make this project a reality? And I struggled. And the second time they shut us down, they pulled me into the city hall, and I will never forget this. They sat me down in the city hall offices and basically told me, Mike, you don't have what it takes. There's no way. You can't do this project. You need to hire someone to basically replace you. Oh, talk about a hit to how you're feeling. I ended up racing to hire someone, found someone just in the nick of time, just in 3 days, which is a terrible way to hire anyone. Don't do that. But we brought that person in, and they were able to kind of cover enough of the bases, at least in front of the city, so that we could do all the work behind the scenes to get things where they needed to be. And I actually remembered just a few weeks before we were supposed to open, about a month before we were supposed to open, there was an important water test that we had to put in place. And this test failed, basically saying that there was a pinhole water leak somewhere in this water main that was buried 15 feet in the ground and was like 1,000 feet long. Just a pinhole leak. Where in the world are we going to find that leak? Our excavator wanted nothing to do with that project. He was trying to leave that project. I actually had to stand out there with him from morning until dusk every single day, out in my fairly nice clothes, out there in the mud, just digging, looking for this pinhole leak. Eventually, we find it. And I remember just a few days before we were supposed to open, the city staff came out and did this inspection on the property. And they said, there's no way you're opening this building when you need to open it. I was like, guys, I got families moving in just a couple of days. What am I going to do? Brought our team together. We worked late through the night, day in and day out, every single day. And I remember the very last day, half a dozen inspectors came out with a half-day inspection. They looked at every nook and cranny of that building. And at the end of that inspection, we went in the basement, the parking garage, and the head building official pulled me aside and said, Mike, I know we were hard on you, but honestly, looking at this building today, this is the best project that we've opened in this city. I was like, oh, finally, I felt like I could actually do this. I could actually make this a career. I could actually build these projects. And I had struggled for a long time. I guess I didn't mention this earlier, but I struggled for a long time wondering if I was good enough, if I could actually make this happen. And it was really that moment I started gaining the confidence that I needed to start having greater success. And that Emberwood project, it ended up netting us about $10 million. Pretty amazing, right? That wasn't the end. We started to see this success with these projects that we were building. So we ended up doing more of them. And I'll just show up here on the screen some of those projects. You can see we ended up doing Gateway Green Apartments. What was fun there is we got the site of that project for just $35,000, which was dirt cheap for the project that we ended up building. But that project cost us about $10 million. It valued out about $15 million. Then we built Encore. That one cost us about $15 million. It valued at 23. Then we built Alexa Lofts. That cost us about $60 million. It valued at 74. You can see now that we've figured out a path forward to actually generate us this income stream that actually really started propelling my wealth to much larger numbers. Now, as I look back, there's a number of stages that we've gone through to be successful here. And I want to share those stages here in just a moment. But before I do so, I also want to point out that we've actually made investments into our company in these kinds of projects available to the public for the very first time. It's called Norhart Invest, and we're offering great rates of return there, very stable rates of return that you can now get a part of in a way that you could never have done before. And so I'm going to leave a link in the description if you want to learn more about how to grow your own wealth through some of the growth that we've had as an organization. So take a look at the description below. But now let me share with you some of the key takeaways that I have had in my own journey. The first is there's different stages. And that first stage is that you've got to be willing to get in and get your hands dirty, right? Live cheaply, do hard work, earn that income so that you can earn that initial sort of nest egg that you can then lever up later down the road. Then as you start building that nest egg, start experimenting. What are different ways that I can expand this wealth even further? And I think you can hear from my story, I've tried a lot of things. I had the most success in real estate and then also in cryptocurrency, but I had also a lot of failures, like that first house that I had bought. And the fact that I didn't invest more in Google like I should have. So there's that experimentation phase. But then the third phase is once you start to figure out what works, then double down, put more money, more energy into that. And that's where you get to this level of tens of millions, hundreds of millions, and billions of dollars of net income or net assets. But I think there's another really important lesson. And that is that if your goal is just to make money, it's going to be hard to do it. Because there are days that I was in the trenches with the excavator. There's days where things seem to fall apart and that you keep getting punched in the gut. And I talk about the success we have had with these different projects, but at every step of the way of those projects, I have dozens of stories of just getting hit, knocked down, feeling I can barely make it, like I'm not going to make it by. And you've got to be okay and have the fortitude and the energy to make it through that, even through those tough times. And if you're in it just for the dollar, you're going to give up. But you need to have a greater purpose, a greater mission, a greater reason why you are doing it. And for me, in the world of real estate, what we started to learn is that with the lower costs that we're able to build housing, we can actually work to solve housing affordability, not just for our own residents, but for everyone nationwide. And now we're on this journey to making that a reality by driving down the cost of housing, right? For me, I don't care how many $100 bills you shovel onto my grave when I'm dead. It just doesn't matter. What I care about is what is the impact that I can make on this world while I'm here. See, my dad died relatively young, and it reminded me how short life really is. We only live about 5,000 weeks here on earth. And what do you want to spend those weeks and your minutes doing? For me, it's about making that impact And as a result, you can see we're having financial success as well. Just don't get those reversed. But overall, you can make this story yours. If you have the energy, the drive, the fortitude, you can do the exact same thing. And I hope you do. And as you're on your journey, hit me up. I'd love to hear how your journey is coming along as well.